Hi everyone, welcome to Matt's Ukulele Theory. Today we're going to look at pentatonic scales. Now, in a later video I'll explain how to create some solos out of these scales, because these scales are some of the most useful scales that you'll ever encounter in the world of soloing. And pentatonic scales, as the name suggests, are made of 5 notes. Okay, just 5 notes, like from a pentagon, pentatonic, 5 notes from the tonic. Okay, from the first note. Now, pentatonic scales are, you can kind of think of them as the major or minor scale altered. And the reason they came about is that when people were composing or soloing, there are 2 notes in each scale, 2 notes in a major scale and 2 notes in a minor scale, that don't sound quite as harmonious as the other notes when played against chords. They tend to clash. And those are any notes that are only half a step away from a note contained within the chords. So for instance, if you play that B note, whoops, there it is, wrong string, I'll try again. If you play that B note while someone's playing a C chord, it kind of sounds a bit stinky. It doesn't quite work. It clashes because it's only half a step away and our ears don't like it. Pentatonic scales are some of the oldest scales in the world. They've been found in music going back centuries, and our ears have got used to them over time. So by getting rid of those notes that clash against certain chords or other notes, we end up with a more harmonious sounding scale. And the 2 notes that we get rid of then in each scale are the ones that are only a half step away from each other. So the notes E and F, because there's no E sharp, are only half a step away from each other. So let's get rid of the F. And the notes B to C are only half a step away from each other. We can't get rid of this one because it's the tonic. So this time we're going to get rid of this one. That is how your C major pentatonic scale is born. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes now. And here they are on a board if you want to have a go at it. We've got an open C, we've got a D note on the 2nd fret, we've got an open E, we've got a G note on the 3rd fret, we've got an open A, and we could play the C note again down here, couldn't we? So if we put those together, now if that sounds familiar, it's partly because these scales are used a lot in Far Eastern music. A lot of people, makes them think of Far Eastern music when they hear that scale, but also they're just centuries old, these scales, so you'll have heard them time and time again. Now these scales are used really commonly to solo. So if someone is playing a song in the key of C major, a really nice 5 notes to solo over any of the chords in C major would be the C major pentatonic. And it's used a lot in old time music. And jigs and reels. Because it's really simple to play these notes and not clash with chords that the other musicians would be playing. So a violinist could play these, or a guitarist, and they wouldn't clash with the pianist, for example, or vice versa. Now, let's have a look at the minor pentatonic scale. Just because the minor pentatonic scale has different intervals, the relationship between the notes are different, aren't they, between the minor pentatonic scale and the major pentatonic. We end up with 2 different notes that are half a step away from each other. Let's have a look. D and E flat, if you remember from your chromatic scale. E flat is the same note as D sharp. It's just as you'd have found out in the earlier video, it's just called something different to make it easier in this key. So D to D sharp or D to E flat is only half a step. So let's take away this D to get rid of that half a step movement. Then let's have a look here. G to A flat. We have the same thing again, don't we? G to A flat is only half a step. So let's get rid of the A flat this time. Don't worry about why that one and not the G. It's largely to do with the fact that we really want this fifth note in the scale. It's really important in any musical scale. Now we have the minor pentatonic scale. Oh, ignore this. I'm going to tell you about this in a minute. Here is the minor pentatonic scale. So we've got 0, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, or C, E flat, F, G, B flat, C. So, in general, if a song is being played in the key of C minor, we could use a minor pentatonic over the top and it would sound really, really lovely. Now, if you remember from an earlier video, we have something called relative minor key to every major key. Every major key in the world has a minor equivalent which uses all the same notes but starts from a different place. And musicians have found out that sometimes if you use the minor equivalent of a particular key, it sounds really lovely and a bit more kind of sophisticated sounding than using just the major. So if a song's being played in the key of C major, if you use to solo over the top the notes from A minor pentatonic, so that's the minor equivalent, so A minor pentatonic, and we know A minor is the minor equivalent because the minor equivalent is 6 up from where you start. So the minor equivalent of C, C, D, E, F, G. I have to think about it. A. It's hard to wiggle the right fingers. Okay, it's 6 up. So if a song was in the key of F major, a nice thing to do would be to go F, G, A, B flat, C, D, would be to use the D minor pentatonic. You don't have to. In a later video, I'm going to explain in way more detail how to solo and how to actually use these things. But in the meantime, if you practice constructing some of these scales, it will really help. Now, I've done these in the key of C, but these could be in any key whatsoever and the same thing works. So, for instance, if I wrote out the key of G major, which is G through to G again, only the F is a sharp. If I wrote out the key of G major just like that, I'd just take out the same number notes. So I take out the 4th one and the 7th one, and that would give me the key of G major pentatonic. Give me the G major pentatonic scale. And I could do the same with a G minor pentatonic scale and take out the 2nd and 6th. Okay, so it works for any key. Now, just quickly, and again, I'm going to go into way more detail about this when we look at soloing and how to use these in your playing. But just know that there's something cool that we can get from a minor pentatonic. If we add one note in, and that's a flatted 5th. What's a flatted 5th? It just means the 5th note in the scale flatted. So instead of a G flat. If we add the G flat into a minor pentatonic, into a C minor pentatonic scale, or if we add the flatted 5th into any minor pentatonic scale, we end up with a blues scale. Now, there are different types of blues scales, but if anyone just says the blues scale, play the blues scale in the key of C, this is what they mean. And the blues scale in the key of C is just the C minor pentatonic scale with this flatted 5th added in. And as soon as you play it, it sounds like the blues, right? And if you think about the blues as a real kind of a primal scream, like a cry from a really dire situation, when we tend to sadden songs, make them more melancholic or angsty or dark, we tend to flatten notes. That's why the minor scale sounds more dark and melancholic than a major scale. See, the minor scale that I played afterwards sounds more melancholic. And it's the same thing here. By adding another flatted note in, it makes it sound even more gritty and earthy. And that gives you the blues scale. So when you see brilliant blues players like Muddy Waters or B.B. King, they will use this note a lot. Now you have to be a bit careful. We'll go into more details when we solo of this one. But because, remember when I was saying earlier how some notes clash with other notes? So like when I play that B note over a C chord, it can kind of clash. It doesn't sound that great. Well, similarly, because this note G flat is so close to this note F and so close to this G note, it clashes against lots of chords that contain these notes. And if you play it on its own for quite a long time, it can sound quite stinky. So it's sometimes called an avoid note in jazz, but what we do, you tend to play through it. And it sounds lovely when put in the middle of the F and the G. Whoops, I played a wrong note then. Okay. Now blues scales tend to be played over the corresponding major key. I know that sounds confusing, but if a song is in C major, you would use the C blues scale, which is actually a C minor pentatonic with a flatted fifth. If all that seems like, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to remember that? There's this amazing thing called Google, and there's also brilliant book resources as well. So if you can't remember all this, don't feel you have to construct these scales in your head. You can always look them up, and they're there to help you. So in a later video, we'll explore about how to turn these really simple scales into ways of soloing. But just know, if you do want to explore soloing, try, if a song is in a major key, try a major pentatonic. If it's in a minor key, try a minor pentatonic. And if it's a blues song, try the corresponding blues scale, and you'll have loads of fun. Okay, see you again in the next video.